Good evening, Weiss fans. Lately I've gotten into an anime called Charlotte, and lo and behold, Bushiroad has blessed us with a trial deck of the very anime. Being the nice kudo that I am, I'm going to try and review this trial deck without giving any spoilers, so let's jump straight in. Okay, and deck list up. What? Sorry guys, it's been a while. Give me just, there we go. As always, if you're just here to net deck the deck list, then here it is. Please enjoy. All I ask is that you leave me a like on your way out. Alrighty, so as you can see, our numbers are looking pretty good. Almost a little too good. Let's take a closer look. 17 level 0s, not bad at all. It's definitely not suffocating like a lot of other trial decks that have come out lately, and it's obviously not Gargantua retarded, so let's see what they have to give us. 8 level 0 vanillas. Okay. So I'm starting to understand where some of the numbers are coming from. We get 4 of the yellow, 4 of the blue. You should know my feelings on these by now. I don't think they're that great, but they're good for beginners because they help fix colors. I admit, when I saw that adorable picture of Ayumi, I was dying to see what she did. But apparently she's just a level 0 vanilla, which is a waste. It's like somebody just pulled the floor right out from under me. We do get another Ayumi in the form of a pretty decent level 0 assist. Only 500 to the ones in front, but it also has the ability where you can pay 1 to draw a card and then discard a card from your hand. I think that's a really good effect for a starter deck like this, especially because there's so much change going on at level 1. You'll see a little more what I mean later. For those who haven't seen my other videos, one really cool thing you can do with this is if you happen to attack and trigger a climax and put a climax into your stock area, normally it's pretty hard to get it out at level 0 because there's nothing to really spend your stock on and you just kind of have to pile it up. But with effects like this, you can very easily get to whatever it was in your stock that became a climax. Even if it's like on the very bottom and it's piled with like 2 cards on top of it, you can just pay 3 stock to just get rid of all of it. Make sure that you don't end up with climaxes in your stock for too long, and you get to draw 3 cards and discard 3 cards through it. And if you're discarding the right cards, then this is a really powerful effect for change decks. Although if you're new to Weiss Schwarz, be careful. This is what I like to call a beginner's trap. If you use this effect too often, then it can completely collapse your stock. Seriously, your stock will just fall straight through and you'll end up killing any chance you have of having a level 1 advantage. And trust me, you don't want to kill yourself using your own ability, okay? That's just silly. Next up, we get 2 copies of Tricky Strategy U. I know sometimes I sort of flip-flop on whether or not I like the really defensive level 0s, but I enjoy it in this context. It's a 4,000 during your opponent's turn, so your opponent's not going to be stepping over it with too much. They're probably going to have to side attack or move to another space and attack an open spot, which means this gets to stay alive and attack during your next turn. And at level 0, the fact that it's only a 2,000 isn't that important because you can just side attack a level 0 and not lose any soul damage. We also get 2 copies of Utilizing Abilities Now Tomori. I like to call her Winky Face, and by Kudo law, you also have to call it Winky Face when you play it. Okay, I'm glad we have it settled. So Winky Face gets plus 1500 power the first turn you put her in play. So the very first time you play her, she's a 4000, and then she just kind of chills at 2500. These kinds of abilities are really good at levels 1, 2, and 3. I'm not too crazy about them on level 0, but there's also nothing necessarily wrong with it. 4,000 is a pretty respectable number, and it will allow you to match or even step over a lot of powerhouses. 3500s are a very, very popular thing right now. And if you're somebody who plays trial decks and fights against a lot of other trial decks, then Winky Face can just kind of step over 3000s without you having to suicide your own 3000s into them. She can even step over the 3000s that are being boosted by characters. If a character is getting 2 assists in the back and they're up to 4000, then you can just match it with a 4000 and kill them both off, and you don't really lose much. I just want to point out there, flavor-wise, I think it's really cool that they included a U that can be 4000 during your opponent's turn, and a now that's a 4000 during your turn, so it's kind of like they're working together. It's not really important to the game, but, you know, I just kind of want to throw it out there. I think it's cool when Bushiroad does little flavor things like this. Last card we're going to look at is 1 copy of Yusa Nishimori, Youth's Whereabouts. You can rest one of your standing characters, probably a character in the back row if you don't want to, I don't know, lose the game. And when this character attacks, you rest 1 character that's standing, and you can give another character 1 level and plus 1500 power. This is a very interesting card. I wouldn't necessarily come out and say that it's an amazing card, but it's a very good card considering that trial decks are supposed to help you get into the game. And one of the things that I notice a lot of newbies kind of struggle with is how to deal with things like level 0 suiciders or kind of pressure like that where the numbers don't necessarily matter and you're trying to play through effects. Giving newbies a card like this allows them to sort of think, wait a second, if I use this to attack an open spot, then I can give one of my other characters +1 level, and all of a sudden I can't be suicided. Outside of that, it's not really that useful. 1500 power is okay, especially since you don't have to pay any stock for it, but I don't really see a need for very many copies of this card or playing it very far past maybe level 1. Speaking of level 1, starting us off at level 1, we have, 6 more vanillas, huh. Well, you guys should pretty much know my feelings on these. I hate the 5500 vanilla, which we got 4 copies of, but I really like the 7000 vanillas, which we got 2 copies of. Oh, I'm sorry, what's that? You like 5500 vanillas? You use them all the time? Well, last I checked, this was my Weiss video. So, for the context of this video, 5500s can go choke on a chubby chocolate chewy stick. And 7000 vanillas rock my socks off. Okay, are we good? Can we move on now? We're going to get one more Ayumi card in the form of Dining Table of Otosaka Household. There's no level 2 or 3 Ayumis, so she only makes it about halfway through the deck. It's all good, I'm sure we'll carry on without her. She's not a very powerful card, but she is the only card in the deck that has Super Encore. No, there's nothing ironic about that ability, what are you talking about? A lot of newer players seem to have trouble understanding concepts like this. But she doesn't cost any stock, and her ability lets her stay on the field for a very long time and continuously gather you more stock. She's not necessarily your level 1 strategy, but you can think of her as, like, the secret ingredient of your level 1 strategy. No, the main star of your level 1 play is gonna be Eucerin. This combo was the most interesting and unique thing about the deck, but please don't get excited for it until after we get a chance to look at it. So we'll start with Yusa Nishimori. During your turn, all your other characters get plus 1000 power, so it's a back row character that gives a 1000 boost to all of your characters, but only during your turn. This is something that is really good to come in a trial deck, especially considering it's free with no stock. If we take a look at its second effect, it's a change effect that lets you change it into the other level 1, Yusa's late older sister Misa. Now, whereas Yusa is a great back row character, Misa is more of a front row character. And the neat thing about this change ability is it doesn't cost any stock either. So pulling off this entire strategy actually doesn't cost you a single stock, letting you save up your stock for bigger level 2 plays. I can see those gears turning in your head. We're not done yet. So when you successfully pull off this change, or just straight up play Yusa's late older sister Misa from your hand, it becomes a 6000 during the turn you put it in play. So it steps over the 5500 vanillas, and pretty much nothing else. The other kind of cool thing about this is after you're done, you can switch this Misa out back with Yusa and turn it back into a back row character. Now, I get it. I see where they were going with this, alright? It's a really cool idea. You have a back row character that has really good back row effect, and you give it an ability where it can switch into a front row character, and by doing this, it also becomes a very good assassin that gets a nice power boost, can step over something, and then it steps back into the back row to become a support again. Neat idea, guys, but it's not that good. The idea is phenomenal, and this kind of strategy probably would have worked about 2 years ago, back when the game was just starting to pop out these trial decks, but it's just not powerful enough anymore. To go through this for a 6000 base is very bad. It's really bad, because now 7000 vanillas are very popular, and a lot of level 1s in competitive decks are going to be at least 6000. And it's not just competitive decks, okay? Trial decks have cards that are 6000. Like, are you kidding me? Iris Veil in Fate Stay Night is like a 6500. The main argument people are going to come out with is, oh, but Kudo, you can have more than one of these in play at a time, so you can have 2 uses in play, you can switch one out for Misa, and then you get a 1000 boost so that you're actually hitting for 7000. Well, my argument there is, first of all, the deck only comes with 2 of these, so if you're only playing on one trial deck, this strategy is really bad. Even if you are lucky enough to get both of them in your hand, doing all of this work for a 7,000 attacker that goes back down to 4,500 during your opponent's turn is really bad. The second point I have is you can just pay 1 to get the 7,000 vanilla out there, and it's better in every conceivable way. It's a 7,000 during both players' turns. It becomes an 8,000 or possibly a 9,000 if you happen to have 2 uses in play during your turn, and you don't even have to deal with any of this change mumbo jumbo. This was a wonderful idea, but as it stands, this strategy is useless. Ah ha! Ah ha ha ha! Ha ha! Seriously though, there's a few things they could have done better with this. The biggest thing they could have done was give Misa the Super Encore. If they've just given Misa Super Encore, then you could put it in the front row, have it assassinate something, then when your opponent attacks into it, encore it back, move it back to the back row, and turn it back into Yusa. And then it would have been a great strategy. It still wouldn't have been overpowered, which I think is what they were trying to avoid, but it would have been good enough to be noteworthy, looked at. Or they could have at least made Misa cost maybe like 1 stock, or made the change effect to Misa cost 1 stock, so that they could make Misa a little bit beefier. At least 5,500 would be fine, because then it would come out as a 7,000 base, and that would at least be kind of okay. But we've talked enough about this, so let's just move on now. What a wasted potential. So now we're going to move on to our level 2 play. There's nothing here that's quite as interesting or as good as our level 1, but, you know, level 2 is important, so let's see what they gave us. Starting us off, we have 4 more vanillas. Are you sure about this? And it's the 8,500 that only swings for 1 soul damage? I mean, well, okay, you're the boss. I mean, she's about as useful here as she was in the show, but I don't want to step on anybody's toes or nothing. Next on our list, we have 2 copies of the level 2 counter? Are you sure? Wait a second. Alright, if we had 9 level 2s, 4 of them are the vanillas, and 2 of them are the backups, then... Wait a second, does this really only have 3 decent front row attackers at level 2? I mean, it makes some twisted logical sense that they would put the level 2 backup in here because we are mainly relying on an 8,500 vanilla on level 2, and this will keep it alive a little longer. But I just don't know if I agree with your thought process. Let's take a look at your other cards. Okay, here we go. Aw yeah, Takajo is one of my favorite characters from the show, and he is not bad at all. Not only does he swing for 2 soul damage, but if there are 4 or fewer cards in your hand, this gets plus 2,000 power. This late in the game, there's a very good chance that you're going to only have 4 or less cards in your hand, and this effect happens during both turns, so it attacks for 10,000 and defends for 10,000. Takajo might just save this deck after all. Last card we're going to look at is 1 copy of Youth's Whereabouts Yu Urosaka. It's a level 2 assist, which isn't bad for a trial deck. That gives 500 times the level of the characters in front of it. I mean, I think I can kind of see where the deck's coming from. If you have the really cheap 8,500 vanillas out there, you can give plus 1,000 to put them up to 9,500, and you only have to pay 1 stock for them. But, again, there's a couple of problems here. First of all, I hate the fact that you have to rely on 8,500 vanillas when you could just pair this guy up with Takajo and Wreckface. The 8,500s are not good just because you have another card that can back them up. That is not how the game works right now. Secondly, Bushiroad is only giving you 1 copy of this guy, so even if you wanted to put in a full set of 4, you're not going to do it, because that would require 4 trial decks, and nobody that's playing the trial deck is going to give up their copies, so tough luck. Oh yeah, its second effect is you can rest this to give one of your characters plus 500. Woohoo. At level 2, the only thing 500 power is going to do for you is resolve ties. If you just so happen to have a Takajo out there at 10,000 and it's facing something that has 10,000, well, you can step over it. It's a decent ability, but it's really nothing that makes up for its shortcomings. Oh, please, level 3. Please be really good. Oh, it's, Well, I mean, it's not awful. Its level 3 effect is the one that lets you draw 2 cards and then discard a card, which is serviceable. And it has a climax combo. When you play Melody of Despair, if this is in the front row, then you can search your deck for one gifted character, put it in your hand, and then all of your characters get plus 1000 power for the turn. So let's try to keep this positive, shall we? You're increasing hand advantage by playing this card, because you lose 1 from your hand for playing it, you draw 2, you discard 1, so you are technically where you started, and then when you play its climax combo, you play the climax from your hand, you can search your deck for 1 card, put it in your hand, and that is essentially replacing itself, so your hand advantage never really goes down. It doesn't increase, but it doesn't decrease either. A level 3 that lets you search your deck is arguably very good, because you can use it to check how many climaxes you have left, how many of each card that you might have left if you don't remember your stock exactly. It lets you take a card out, which helps thin your deck out a little bit, so it makes it a little bit easier to climax cancel. What else? If you have multiple of these in the front row, all of their effects pop. So you could potentially get a lot out of this if you are combining 2 of the trial decks and you have 3 of these in the front row, then all of your characters get plus 3000 power, which makes them all 13,000s, which, no sarcasm, is very good for a trial deck, and you're also getting 3 cards out of your deck and putting them in your hand at, again, no stock. Really, my main grievance with this card is I feel like it's a little bit misplaced. I understand that they're trying to do this whole thing with the trial deck where nothing really costs stock, so you have lots of stock for lots of encores, lots of effects, but its main thing is giving you characters in your hand, so I don't understand why they didn't make character discard encore a bigger thing. I feel like if we at least had 2 different characters that could character discard encore, then this would be kind of a solid idea, because you would be filling your hand with characters, and you could just keep characters alive to go through, deal as much soul damage as possible, and keep your stock alive so that you could have maximum encores. But it's not really that kind of deck, so I don't really know what to think about it. Finally, we've reached the end of the deck, and we get an event at 2 copies. The events that come in these trial decks are normally pretty good, so let's take a look and see what we got. No, guys, no. What are you doing? Rest 2 of your standing characters. If 2 characters are rested this way, search your library for up to 2 characters with either gifted and or housework, reveal them and put them in your hand, shuffle your library. Where do I even begin? First of all, this is a pretty basic search card. Should not be a level 2. This would be far more useful at level 1, especially considering the rest of the deck operates very well at level 1, so that's where we need to be searching for characters. 2. This card should not cost 2 stock. I would accept it at 1 stock, but 2's a little heavy. If we look back at some of the other cards that have come out in trial decks that are a lot like this, most of them are free, or they cost like 1. I'm thinking Melancholic, I'm thinking Law of Cycles, I'm thinking cards that really would have been a better fit for this. Granted, those cards only let you search 1 character, but even being able to only search 1 character would have been better than what they've given us. I get it, guys, I get it. The deck doesn't cost a whole lot of stock, so you have the extra stock to spend on a more powerful effect. I totally get it, still don't think it's good. 3. Why, for the love of God, you have to rest 2 of your characters in order to play this? There's so many restrictions. You have to be on level 2. You have to have 2 stock. You have to rest 2 of your characters, and the only thing you get out of it is you can search your deck for 2 characters and put them in your hand. I get it, guys. Looking through your deck for climaxes, deck thinning, all of it's good. It's just too much for something like this. This is sort of 2013 mentality we have with some of these cards. Grandpa, gas is no longer 25 cents. Computers are a very normal thing for people to have in their homes, and a card that lets you search your deck for 2 characters on level 2 should not both cost 2 stock and also resting 2 characters. This is our climax lineup. We get 2 of each of the blue ones and 4 of the yellow ones. The yellow ones are a bounce trigger, which admittedly is pretty nice. We get 2 copies of the +2 soul, which is pretty good. Obviously, the bounce trigger is going to be 1000 power, 1 soul, And then, interestingly enough, the other blue climax is going to be the one where you play it, you get a blue card from your discard pile, and you gain it as stock, because, you know, the deck is very stock intensive and has nothing to do with spending as little stock as possible, so you definitely need the one extra stock. I'm not in the business of sugarcoating, guys. This is one of the worst trial decks that I've seen in a very long time. The concepts and power ratios are just a little too dated. If this had come out when Weiss was first starting, or maybe like a year into Weiss's lifespan, then this deck would be like mid-tier serviceable at best. If you're looking at getting this trial deck because you love the anime, or if you've already got the deck and you're watching this video to get some tips on how to play it, good luck. I am so sorry. There's really nothing I can say. I'm not trying to knock the show. Okay, the show is good. I'm not saying that Charlotte itself is bad. I'm saying that these mechanics in this trial deck are not that good. And I know some people are going to go into the comments and say, oh, Kudo, you're being too harsh. This is good. I win all the time with this trial deck. Just because you win with the trial deck doesn't necessarily mean it's that good. The whole deck is just strategies that don't work that well, and vanillas. There's like half of the deck is just vanillas. Why? It's the most vanillas I've seen in any trial deck, and it's not even all the good vanillas. I really wouldn't even recommend this deck for beginners, because a beginner trying to figure out how to win games with this is just gonna be awful. It's gonna be a mess. It's gonna turn them off of the game, and that's real bad. Regardless, stick around. Old Kudo's going to show you how to spruce the deck up a little bit and have it be a little more serviceable and competitive. First of all, as always, you're going to want 2 copies of the deck. Having to spend $40 on the deck that I'm about to give you is highway robbery. I sure hope you found a way to get these decks super cheap. Starting at level 0, we're going to kick out all 8 of the level 0 vanillas. We don't need a single one of them in our deck. This is going to make our level 0 play a little light, but we're going to play around it. Go ahead and keep all of your Ayumi everyday handmade cooking because it is our level 0 assist. Put in all of the other level 0s. You're going to put in both of the other tricky strategy used to go up to 4. Same with now, and because we only have access to 2 Yusa Nishimoris at level 0, we're going to go ahead and just put both of them in so that we have a slightly bulkier level 0. At level 1, take out all of the 5500 vanillas. We are going to put 2 more of the 7000 vanillas in to sort of fill the space. We're also going to put in 1 more Yusa Nishimori. People are going to be confused here as to why I'm putting in 1 more Yusa and not 1 more Misa, because that is sort of like the main core strategy of level 1. But we're actually not going to rely on that. We're going to play with 3 Yusa for the really good back row effect. And we're going to play with 2 Misa because it's going to be our backup strategy. No, our main thing is going to be Ayumi and Yu. We're going to have the 5000 with Encore that can stay alive, and the 7000 that just costs 1 stock. And that is going to be our core strategy. At level 2, take out all 4 Madonna of Hinomori High School Yumis. I don't like them. If you mess with the numbers a little bit, you can put slightly more in, but instead of trying that, we are just going to rely on level 1 and play on sort of a light level 2. We're going to put in 1 more Now Tomori. We don't need a full set of 4 of the counter cards, but having 3 of them is pretty nice, especially since we can search it with our events and our level 3 card. We're going to put in 2 more Takujo because it's the best card in the deck. And we're going to put in our 1 more Use Whereabouts Yu Orosaka, who is another really good back row. If you happen to get super lucky and maybe somebody threw one of these decks in the trash or something, go ahead and put in 1 more Use Whereabouts Yu Orosaka and take out 1 of the Yusa Nishimoris at level 1, and we'll just run a full 3 of Yu and just 2 of the Yusa because we don't really need it. Of course, at level 3, go ahead and just put in 2 more of the Now Tomoris. It's our level 3. It's not necessarily a bad level 3, especially if you can get all 3 of them out there. So go ahead and rock that at a full set of 4. The event, don't even bother touching it, okay? 2 is more than enough for the event, and trust me, I would take those out and put something else in if we had anything better. But as it stands, we can use it to get a Takujo and a Yu if we don't have them out, or get our level 3s if we really need them, or something along those lines. I normally don't tell you to change up the climaxes, but in this case I'm going to tell you take out both of the I think about others and put in 2 more special abilities. The +2 soul climax is going to work wonders compared to the one that just gives you more stock. And that's about it. I don't think I really have anything else to say on the deck. If you enjoyed this video, please leave it a like. Those things really do help us out. Leave me your thoughts on the deck in the comments section below. Go ahead and tell me that my opinion sucks and that you actually really enjoyed this deck. And finally, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudo news. I'm sorry if this video seemed a little harsh, seemed like I was being a little negative. Keep in mind, this is all just for fun, guys. I did kind of overstate how bad I think the deck is, but I'm not going to change my opinion. I do really think it's one of the worst decks that I've looked at, but, you know, it's still kind of a cool thing to just have around, and the more variety, the better. You better believe I'm going to do a set review of the cards when we see what the set looks like, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao for now.